Hello, we are Team 6. Our project is CodePath. This is Intro to Software Engineering, CSE 350, and this is our project. I'm Robert Lovett.
I'm Eli Drake.
I'm Luke Stallard.
I'm Jason Prevey. I worked on the back end. Yeah.
As we have said in previous homework examples, our project is called CodePath. It is a web application designed to teach the fundamentals of Python in a really hands-on way. Instead of just reading material and passively watching examples, the user can actively practice by writing Python code directly in their browser and immediately see whether or not their solution works. The idea is to make learning Python more interactive and rewarding. Each lesson in CodePath follows the same structure. On the left, the user is given instructions. This part explains the Python concept they're focusing on, and it also describes the tasks they need to complete. In the middle, there will be a programming panel. This looks and feels like a modern code editor, where the user can write the solution to the task. On the right, there will be a results panel. The panel will look like a terminal, and it will show the output of the code that the user ran, as well as feedback on whether or not the user's answer was correct or not. The workflow is very simple. The user reads the instructions, writes their code, submits it, and instantly sees the results. They can keep experimenting until they're satisfied, and they can track their progress over time. We looked in some other sites. CodePath would be in the same business as, and found 4 points that seem to be shared across several sites, across the several sites we looked at, that could be better done in CodePath. Then those being cost, structure, UI elements, and compiler integration. In order to improve upon these differences CodePath has compared to other sites, we would be a free-to-learn tutorial site instead of pay-to-learn like several of the other competitors had. We know several of the competitors also had lessons that weren't very beginner-friendly, to the point that some of the lessons around the middle of the whole tutorial could even give an experienced coder pause and try to decipher what the lesson was asking. CodePath will simplify the lessons to the point where even if you've never touched a computer before, you can hop in and start learning. We would also have UI improvements. A lot of the time, we noticed that some of the other UI elements for these other sites would be difficult to understand and unfriendly to the user, which would cause like frustration, or it has a lot of ads, and we would simplify that and remove those from ours. The final thing we would do is integrate a compiler into our website, so the user does not need to download any potential dangerous software to their computer.
Okay, I'm Luke. I worked on the front end design. This is currently how the homepage looks in CodePath. We plan on making this look a little better in the future, but we need something we could use while testing before finalizing the design at the end. From here, the user can navigate to the lessons if they're logged in, or to their profile. They could also log out or go to the admin page if they have administrative access. This is the current login page. We tried to give it a kind of tech feel to it. The options that are to create a new account and reset a forgotten password are also available on the page. The credentials are checked against the ones in the account database. If there's a match, that means the account exists and the user successfully logs in. If there's no match, meaning the account doesn't exist, or an error message is shown, the user can try again. This is the created account page. When a new user creates their account, the username, email, and password are stored in our account database. We give them 10 single-use recovery keys that are also generated, encrypted, and stored with the other info for the account holder. So we have a bit of a unique way to reset your password. When you make an account, you will be given 10 single-use codes that can be used to reset your password if needed. Um, as long as you keep them safe and secure. When code is used, it is removed from the database so it cannot be used again. All right, here's the lessons page. This is the main page for completing lessons regarding Python. Here's where there are three panels or sections that are shown on the lessons tab, where the lessons instructions will be displayed. In the left pane, the middle pane is for the editor section, and finally an output where you can check to see if what you passed the lesson, if you passed the lesson or if you need to try it again. Here is the user profile page, along with some displaying your profile information such as username, the email they use to create the account, and a profile pic if you want to add one. An optional brief introduction about yourself can be added. And user stats at the bottom will show your progress. Okay, here's the layout for the UI's password recovery. Again, we would like to make a note of all these UI designs are temporary for testing purposes and will be improved for the final version. This works by checking the one-time use recovery key the user gave with the ones that are active in the database. If it matches, then the database updates the password it has with the new one and removes the key that the user used. If it does not match, an error message is shown and the user can try again.
Okay, so now let's take a look at the back end. This is the logic CodePath follows when the user performs an action from the login page. So there are three unique actions the user can take on this page. They can either enter their credentials, create a new account, or reset their password if they forgot it. When the user enters their credentials, we first check if they're valid or not by checking if what they enter is in the account database. If they are valid, a new session is created and the user is redirected to the home page. If the credentials are invalid, CodePath will show an invalid credentials error message and the user will be prompted to try again. When the user creates a new account, they're prompted to enter the credentials they would like to use once again. CodePath will then check to see if what they entered is a duplicate of credentials already in the account database. If it is a duplicate, then the credentials are invalid. So we'd get an error message saying that it's shown to the user, and they're prompted to use different credentials if that were the case. If the credentials are unique and they are valid, they are stored in the account database. That means they're stored in the account database. And then the 10 single user passcode recovery codes are generated and the user is taken to that corresponding page where they can see those. If the user selects the forgot password option, they're prompted to enter their credentials along with one of the single use recovery codes that was generated prior to that when they first signed up for the CodePath. CodePath then compares what they entered with the account database to check for validity. If it is invalid, then the error message is shown and the user can try again. If the credentials are valid, the user is brought to the change password page. After the user changes their password, the user recovery code is disabled and a new session is created and the user is directed to the home page. So just kind of a overview of what the backend looks like for credentials, user validation. Next, let's look at how we want to structure CodePath as a whole, so the website structure hierarchy. So the way we're thinking of structuring CodePath is something like this. When you first go to the site and are on the home page, the user would be able to navigate to lessons, the user profile, and an admin page, but only if they had an admin account. The admin page is only available to users with admin access. And they'll also be able to navigate to a login or logout page, as well as to the home page for uniformity across the different pages. So the lessons page will only be available to users that are signed in. Otherwise, that just, and would show the user the first lesson and any subsequently unlocked lessons. You cannot see lessons far in the future if you haven't completed the previous lessons up until that point. That's a feature we're wanting to implement. If you're not signed in, it will have a pop-up that will reroute the user to the sign in or register page. The login and logout page will allow the user to log in if they have an account or to register if they don't. We saw what that looks like earlier, so it would just redirect to those previous pages that we discussed. And it would also let the user reset their password if they forgot it. Finally, let's take a look at the database layout. So our backend is based on mainly two things, Django and PostgreSQL. PostgreSQL is, that's what we're using for our actual database, and that's what this is. This is the relational relational entity diagram that shows sort of how the database is structured. So we have various tables here that all hold parts of the database, various information. If you look at what's most important, is probably going to be the auth user table, as well as the lesson table, lesson_lesson. These really hold the core of the backend. But essentially, when a user creates an account and they enter their information, like their username, their first name and last name, email, etc., it will be stored in this auth user table. And one thing that I wanted to mention quickly is we plan on encrypting the passwords as well as the recovery codes. So even if someone were to hack into the database and get access, or even the database manager or maintainer, if they were to go into the database, they would not be able to see the passwords. All they would see is an encrypted passcode that would be impossible to sort of figure out what the password is unless they have the decryption key. We're planning on encrypting everything using the HW2 encryption algorithm, as that is the standard. But that's all I have for the backend.
All right, and this is our high-level architecture for the front end. You'll have the user interface, and then we'll be hosting this website on or through AWS. And then for the back end, like Jason just went through, we're using Django and PostgreSQL for the database. And so information will come from the user through Django and then be stored in the database. And then Django will fetch the data and send it to the host to be output into the user interface for the user to see and to use. So this is our risk analysis. We came up with 6 different possible risks, and then how to mitigate these risks. The first one was incomplete lessons. The lessons we might create could be lacking in core concepts or depth, and this would cause the users to struggle when learning and then lose engagement. To fix this, we decided having a roadmap to follow when making the lessons would help. So each point on the roadmap would have what the user is supposed to learn, and then the points we would need to cover and which ones are less of a priority for that lesson. So the second risk is interface and navigation issues. So a cluttered and messy UI could turn the user off from our site and before they even get to the lessons. And this was also one of the things in our need analysis that we wanted to solve. And so to fix this, we could have a third party use the site and provide feedback. So then the third issue was compiler integration. And so that's just for us using an in-browser compiler could bring any number of security, latency, compatibility issues. And so to mitigate this would be to limit the execution time and validate the code before running it, and just repeating tests as we work through the process and work to integrate the compiler. So, and then we have user forgetfulness. The user could forget to keep up with the tutorials, forget what they learned, some of the key concepts from earlier lessons. So then the tutorials themselves will be less effective. And so in addition to saving where the user left off, we could send out reminders to keep up with these lessons, to use the user's email, and add recap quizzes for the users to use after some of the lessons. And then also we could say they forget their login information. We use what Jason and Luke went through of the ways to use the 10 recovery codes. And then we have performance issues. So if CodePath has heavy internet traffic, it could cause lag, severe timeouts, or even crashes in the worst case scenario. And we would implement load balancing, optimize the front end, and then test the scalability of CodePath to lessen this risk. Finally, there could be issues with progress tracking and grading. So if there are bugs in the process saving, progress saving, or the grading for the code, it could lead to frustration on the user's end and just overall inefficiency on our end. And so by testing the code with unit and integration tests and routinely backing up the user's data, we could mitigate this issue. So then for these potential ethical issues, we don't foresee many with CodePath. The main ones we could see facing is teaching someone with malicious intent, like a hacker or a data broker, having tutorials that are not up to date, and then just teaching bad coding habits. So while we can't prevent the users with malicious intent entirely, we can mitigate it by excluding that content from our lessons to prevent our tutorials from being outdated. We can go through the tutorials once every year to see if anything could be improved. And with the bad coding habits, the best way to prevent them is to teach what are the ways that we should, we should implement an auto checker to make sure the code the user writes matches with the correct solution that we set up. So with good habits to have when coding, we're able to set that up. And then for each of our assignments, as we've already mentioned, Jason worked on the back end, Luke worked on the front end, and then Robert and I both worked on documentation, the tutorials, and then the testing of the website and getting all this information into the slides.